Ever found yourself in a situation where the lines of family and love blur? Join me on an emotional roller coaster as I navigate the unexpected complexities of my new life with my husband, Richard, and his son, Logan. What starts as a simple blending of lives quickly spirals into a web of feelings that challenge everything I thought I knew. Can I untangle this mess, or will it tear us apart? Stick around to find out, and don't forget to like and subscribe. I didn't expect that combining my life with my new spouse Richard and his son Logan would introduce such intricacy and depth, extending beyond the simple blending of our existences. Deciding to share my journey with Richard has been one of the most rewarding choices I've made, despite the unexpected adjustments. Having recently turned 21, Logan was at a crucial point, pondering his future after finishing his education. When Richard left for work, I frequently found myself alone with Logan. Initially, our bond felt somewhat distant, but over time, we discovered ways to connect and comprehend each other better. Logan showed consideration and a maturity beyond his years, fostering a comfortable dynamic between us. At first, I saw his kindness as mere politeness, but as time went on, brief yet significant moments emerged, making me wonder if there was a deeper connection we both hesitated to admit. One morning, I was at home anticipating a tranquil day while Richard was away. I was in the bathroom, finishing my morning routine. The sound of the shower filled the room as steam gently rose and settled on the mirrors. As I sat in quiet thought, I recalled the conversation Logan and I had the previous night. We discussed his future plans and dreams, but I noticed a hint of doubt in his eyes. As I stood in front of the mirror drying my hair, I heard a sound at the bathroom door, and Logan's voice came from the other side. "Are you there?" It caught me off guard. Logan often skipped knocking on the bathroom door, especially during those quiet early hours. After a moment of reflection, I turned towards the door. "Yes, Logan, I'm here. How have you been feeling lately?" After a brief silence, I heard faint movements from the other side of the door. "I'm sorry to bother you, but I need to grab something from the bathroom. Would you mind if I come in for a moment?" For a brief moment, I felt uncertain. The steam lingered in the room as I wrapped myself in a thin towel, my wet hair cascading down. Logan's voice carried a sense of innocence, making it feel natural for him to seek something from me. I agreed, trying to keep my tone calm. "Please come in." With a gentle touch, the door opened and Logan knocked softly. His voice was filled with worry. "I need to discuss something important with you." He wore sports pants, and his hair was tousled as if he had just woken up. After glancing at me, he quickly turned to the closet, eager to find what he was looking for. As I stood before the mirror, I noticed a change in our interactions, prompting me to reflect on our evolving relationship. As he entered the room, his gaze lingered on me for a few extra moments before shifting away. I felt a sense of concern when I realized something was troubling him. Not long after, I noticed he had stopped his search. I found it. He softly spoke, holding a jar of pain relief medication. Instead of leaving, he chose to stay. Once more, his gaze lingered on me. "Are you getting ready for something special?" "Not yet. I'm just starting my day," I responded, meeting his gaze and trying to maintain a sense of normalcy. "Why do you ask?" The atmosphere in the room grew heavier with each passing moment. I was truly taken aback by his comment. "Have I changed in any way?" I turned to him, wrapped in the towel, and gazed at him intently. There was a depth in his eyes that spoke of mysteries I had yet to understand, a profound and overwhelming feeling that took my breath away. "Have you noticed any differences in me lately? Could you clarify what you mean?" I spoke to him more calmly than I had planned. Logan ran his tongue over his lips, momentarily diverting his gaze before meeting my eyes once more. "I'm finding it difficult to put into words. I'm feeling uncertain about the answer." In that instance, I was at a loss for words. The growing quiet between us weighed heavily, and the air was thick with tension, creating an atmosphere of uncertainty about how to address it. Logan, my partner's son, was the cause of these confusing emotions. I felt an internal struggle, trying to comprehend the changing nature of our relationship. Before I could express myself, Logan moved closer, reducing the gap between us. As I looked at him, my heart raced, unsure of my next move. He stopped a short distance away, looking at me intently, and spoke softly. I apologize if this seems strange, but lately I've been experiencing something I can't quite understand. Instantly, I was breathless, speechless, and uncertain about how to respond honestly. I shared his emotions, sensing a subtle change in our bond, as if we were growing closer in a new way, transcending our family ties. I began to speak, my voice slightly trembling. Logan, I truly don't understand what's happening. But as I was about to finish, he leaned in closer and gently touched my hand. The interaction was tender and considerate, filling me with excitement and wonder. I could feel my heart racing, a clear sign that we had crossed an unexpected boundary, even though it had been building over time. Logan whispered, I know it's not right. Holding my hand, his voice trembling with emotion. Words failed me. The moment was intense, leaving me in deep thought, my mind racing with complex emotions. He was Richard's son, yet the deep connection I felt for him was undeniable. In that moment, I felt compelled to say I needed to leave, stepping back and breaking our connection. I felt my voice quiver and sensed the warmth in my cheeks. Logan expressed his sorrow, whispering an apology, though it lacked true intention. All right, I said, striving to regain my composure. Let's talk later. I quickly followed him, leaving the bathroom behind, my mind a whirlwind of confusion, guilt, and emotions I wasn't ready to embrace. As I gently closed my room door, I found solace and renewed my spirit, my heart still racing. What just happened? How did everything unfold so quickly? What should I do next? Even though nothing significant had occurred, I felt completely lost, uncertain about my next move. Throughout the day, I tried to act normal, completing household chores and shopping, attempting to move past the bathroom incident. However, Logan's memories lingered his closeness, the warmth of his touch, and the depth of emotion in his eyes, which I had never seen before, remained unforgettable. The outcome was not what I had hoped for. I married Richard and Logan became my stepson. Our connection was meant to be simple and familial, yet something shifted between us, and I didn't recognize it until it was too late. After our encounter, Richard left on a work trip, leaving me alone with my thoughts. The silence was profound, compelling me to face the reality of what had transpired. That moment replayed in my mind the warmth and closeness we shared, the power of his words quickening my heartbeat, and the undeniable attraction I felt. As night fell, my unease grew stronger. I didn't hear from Logan all day, which brought me a sense of calm, yet I was uncertain about how to approach him after everything that had transpired. A part of me deeply yearned for his presence, wondering where he was, what he was thinking, and if he felt the same uncertainty. As I sat on the sofa, holding a nearly empty glass of wine, I suddenly heard the main door open. My heart leaped, and I quickly set the glass down, trying to find my calm. Logan entered the room with a blank expression. As our eyes met, a profound silence enveloped us, each lost in the other's gaze. The tension between us was palpable. He greeted me softly, breaking the stillness with his warm words, speaking gently and uncertainly, as if it was challenging for him to approach me. Upon hearing his greeting, I responded with a voice that quivered with emotion. A wave of unease washed over me as he shared his feelings of doubt. I wasn't sure if you'd return today. He responded affirmatively, explaining that he merely wanted to spend some time outside. He gazed through the window, his mind wandering beyond what was visible. A sense of restlessness seemed to grip him, as if he was hurriedly searching for the right words. Yet, there was more to his expression, something that mirrored my own feelings. Despite my attempts to focus, my thoughts overwhelmed me. It was my chance to express my feelings, to shed light on our situation, and to bring clarity and understanding. However, I struggled to put my thoughts into words. I kept watching him, noticing how his shirt fit his frame and how his dark hair softly brushed his eyes. He had changed significantly since the day I married Richard, undergoing a deep transformation in his adult life. In that quiet moment, it was impossible to ignore the feelings. Logan approached, sincerely apologizing for our earlier conversation. His tone was soft, aiming to keep the atmosphere comfortable. Yet, I felt confused about what had happened. I shook my head, releasing a deep sigh, and voiced my thoughts, my tone revealing that something was amiss. I was taken aback. He nodded slightly, lifting his gaze, and our eyes met in a deep moment. I often wonder about my role in this family and find it hard to express myself to you. I understand it's not ideal, but managing my emotions is tough for me. His words left me shaken, and I felt a deep sense of suffocation. I needed to say something to keep the situation from worsening, but I couldn't deny the truth in his words. There was a bond between us, something that had been growing for a long time, and it was hard for me to accept. Logan, I began, my voice trembling softly. This can't happen. It's not right. You are Richard's son, and I feel I've overstepped. His voice was filled with sadness, but my emotions remained unchanged. He moved closer, and I felt the warmth from his body with each heartbeat. The space between us shrank. I intended to step back, to create distance, but my legs felt rooted in place. Instead, I stayed, feeling my heart race, and rather than pulling away, I reached out and took his hand. The connection was intense, enveloping me in a warmth that was impossible to ignore. I looked at him, seeing the same emotions reflected in his eyes: uncertainty, deep longing, and heavy regret. All those feelings were openly shared between us. Logan softly expressed his desire not to cause pain, his finger gently brushing against the back of my hand. But I can't keep pretending this isn't real. It was hard for me to accept. My thoughts were a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. I felt a deep conviction in my actions. There was a bond between us, something real and unmistakable. But it didn't feel right. I had taken on the role of a stepmother to him, Richard's son. This felt impossible, being there, feeling the warmth of his hand, quickening my heartbeat. I realized I didn't have the strength to pull away. Not right now. Not when we were on the brink of something so profound and authentic. I found myself in a tough spot, my voice barely escaping as a soft whisper. Logan stepped closer, his grip tightening as he held my hand. "We don't have to solve everything right now," he said gently. "We must face the situation instead of ignoring it." His words hung in the air, heavy with all that remained unsaid. In that moment, I truly understood the depth of his feelings. Continuing the pretense was no longer an option. After a long time, the tension between us grew overwhelming, and once everything was laid bare, it felt like there was no turning back. Before I could respond, Logan expressed his feelings, leaving me contemplating the boundaries of our relationship. In that moment, I chose to respond with a kiss, my hand gently resting on his neck, drawing him closer. That moment captured the deep sadness and unspoken feelings we had held within a deep sense of yearning, confusion, regret, and a profound emotional connection, something that felt like love. I was completely unaware of its significance and uncertain about where we were headed. In that moment, I felt a sense of calmness wash over me as we finally said our goodbyes. A deep breath escaping us both with our foreheads touching and the weight of our recent choices. We were taken aback, but instead of feeling remorse, I felt a different emotion, a sense of tranquility and release when the built-up tension between us finally came to a head. We no longer needed to wear masks. Logan gazed at me, his expression a mix of deep emotions. He asked softly, "What should we do next?" He hesitated, a sign of his inner turmoil. I haven't received any response. It was evident that everything between us had undergone a profound transformation. Yet, in that moment, as I held his hand, I understood that I didn't wish to return. In that moment, I conveyed that this was not the conclusion. Unknowingly, the words slipped from my lips, and then I added, "But we will find a path forward together." A wave of tranquility washed over me when he smiled, a sensation I hadn't experienced since that morning in the bathroom. Regardless of what this means or how it alters our situation, we will face it together. The narrative is still developing. In the days that followed, we encountered Hedi, a mix of peaceful moments, gentle gestures, and unexpressed feelings that quietly lingered between Logan and me after our first kiss. We both sensed the significance of having crossed a line. However, instead of guilt or sorrow, we felt relief, as if the tension that had existed between us for weeks had finally dissipated. Yet in that moment of relief, we couldn't ignore that our future had changed completely. During Richard's absence for work, Logan and I often found ourselves alone at home. The tranquil moments we shared became incredibly meaningful. Every gesture and expression of joy seemed to hide unspoken questions. How does this connect to our group? Where are we headed next? And most importantly, how long can we keep this information private? One evening, just a few days after our first kiss, Logan and I were once again in the backyard as dusk settled in and the sun gently faded away, casting a soft golden light over the garden while the air held on to a comforting warmth from the day's embrace. We had grown accustomed to a soothing routine of spending our evenings outdoors, engaging in lighthearted chats and savoring the peaceful moments that blossom when two souls share a special connection. Logan sat down next to me. Our elbows brushed against one another, sending a wave of emotion through me as I felt his warmth against my skin. I sensed his gaze on me, and when I turned to look at him, he offered a gentle and shy smile that made my heart race. "May I ask you something?" He spoke softly, his voice barely above a whisper. "Of course," I replied, slightly shifting my gaze toward him. He looked down at his hands as if gathering courage to express his feelings. "Have you thought about how important this is given our situation?" It was hard for me to absorb as my heart raced in my chest. My thoughts wandered endlessly, yet I chose silence over voicing them. Confronting the reality of what was developing between us felt daunting. I realized my voice came out softer than expected. "I feel unsure about whether I have the answers." He nodded slowly, his eyes cast downward. "I just want you to know that this isn't temporary or short-lived," he said earnestly. "Your importance in my life means so much to me. I often push past boundaries. I recognize the situation is tough and managing my feelings is challenging." His words hung heavily in the air with all that remained unsaid. A deep sense of suffocation filled me as my heart ached while facing the truth behind his words. Concern for his well-being surged within me as it seemed to extend beyond what was safe. However, I also worried about what this meant for us, our future together, and for my relationship with Richard. "I'm worried about you," I said, my voice trembling with emotion. "This situation goes beyond just us. Richard has an important place in our lives and is deeply intertwined with everything. If he were to find out..." Logan's expression grew more intense as he processed his emotions. He clenched his jaw tightly. "I truly understand your viewpoint. I care about him deeply," he admitted. "But I can't keep ignoring what's developing between us." I searched for the right words while he gently bit my lip. Our connection was real, yet we both knew there would be consequences. It was never my intention to hurt Richard, even though disappointing him was not something I wanted either. Still, I couldn't disregard the strong bond clearly present between Logan and me. Speaking softly and uncertain about what choice was right, I realized that ignoring this situation was no longer an option. When I looked up again, Logan's eyes reflected a mix of emotions: hopefulness, apprehension, and deep longing as he paused before reaching out to take my hand, intertwining his warm fingers with mine. This closeness enveloped me in peace and revitalized my spirit at that moment as he gently brushed his finger along the back of my hand while softly expressing that they would find a solution together, despite any challenges ahead. His words resonated within me deeply, filling my heart with unwavering faith. Everything suddenly became clear as fear, confusion, and uncertainty faded away into calm clarity. Even though we didn't have all the answers, it wasn't essential to possess them right now. What truly mattered was our unity on this matter, and that our shared concern held immense significance. We stood quietly reflecting as the sun sank below the horizon, casting long shadows dancing gently across the garden, while a soft breeze lingered on and distant cricket chirps gently interrupted the serene stillness as day gracefully transitioned into night. Leaning my head on Logan's shoulder allowed me to feel his steady breathing rhythm wash over me with peace, a feeling I'd not experienced in ages. Even though I wished to hold on to that moment forever, the truth loomed close at hand. Soon Richard would return home, which filled me with unease about facing him. Knowing what had transpired between Logan and myself, how could one maintain appearances when deep down everything felt wrong? In the days following, Logan and I tried hard to remain calm, creating an atmosphere of ease around us, even though we knew confronting our difficult reality was inevitable. Our connection was evident, yet regret began weighing heavily on my heart before Richard's return home. Lying in bed one night, staring up at the ceiling made finding peace seem impossible amidst relentless turmoil swirling through my thoughts, while only sounds filling the quiet house were gentle hums from air conditioning, starting up then pausing again. Finding tranquility and rest seemed completely out of reach. Thoughts of Logan continuously invaded my mind, reviving memories of our closeness and the profound bond we shared, awakening emotions that had long been suppressed. I recognized that a decision lay ahead of me. Navigating this uncertain situation was incredibly challenging, as I felt torn between my feelings for Logan and my loyalty to Richard. The mere thought of having to choose between them was excruciatingly painful to contemplate. As I lay there, absorbed in my thoughts, I heard a faint noise coming from the door. My heart raced, feeling as though it were lodged in my throat. I settled into my seat, feeling the anticipation build within me. I softly called for the person to come in, my voice trembling slightly with hesitation. The door opened gently, and Logan knocked softly before speaking with concern. "I need to discuss something important with you," he said seriously after shutting the door behind him. He took a seat on the edge of the bed, feeling the weight of the day settle around him. In that moment, silence enveloped us, and the heaviness of unexpressed thoughts lingered in the air. He spoke quietly, his gaze fixed on the floor as he shared his reflections on what he had mentioned about Richard and acknowledged the difficulties we faced. "I would prefer not to pressure you into making a decision," he said, struggling to accept this reality. His earnest tone tightened a knot in my chest. Suddenly, he interrupted himself to declare his love for me with a strong voice filled with deep emotion. "I'm not sure when it happened," he continued, "but my heart is filled with a profound love for you. I understand that I cannot expect you to feel the same way, but I hope you can consider my feelings." His words struck me deeply, leaving me momentarily breathless. Deep within me, I had always believed he felt similarly about me. As he voiced those feelings aloud, the intensity of his emotions resonated within him, making his sincerity palpable. "I also have strong feelings for you," I whispered softly. Those words slipped out beyond my control. Logan looked at me with eyes shining with a blend of surprise and hope. "Really?" he asked. "I completely relate to that." My heart raced in my chest. However, this did not simplify matters between us. In that moment of silence, I experienced a profound stillness that left me at a loss for how to continue our conversation. It became clear to me that I had reached an important realization. I chose to reveal my true self and longed for connection with him through our gazes. Reflecting back on it now, I recognize that my choice was driven by emotion rather than logic. Yet at that moment, I felt an overwhelming sense of calm. He quickly grasped my message and welcomed my proposal as I nestled close to him and shared a gentle kiss. We embraced our feelings together. Everything felt intensely significant. By choosing to acknowledge my emotions, I found a sense of peace within myself. However, just as everything began with such fervor, it also came to an abrupt end. I could sense the excitement he must have felt. In that instant when he reached out and took hold of my hand, we stood silently exchanging glances that conveyed so much without words. The weight of our situation pressed heavily upon us as he spoke softly. "We will find a way forward despite any challenges we encounter." In that moment, trust blossomed within me regarding his words. Even though I knew a choice awaited me, there was an undeniable certainty about what the right answer was supposed to be. When Richard returned home that morning, an unusual calmness enveloped me like the stillness before an approaching storm. The tension building between Logan and myself was unmistakable, like mist surrounding us inescapably upon Richard's arrival. We sensed changes were imminent but remained uncertain about their nature. Our relationship had taken an unexpected turn toward deeper emotional complexity. No matter how hard I tried to forget it, all lingered nearby like an unwavering presence. Upon Richard's return home, he received a warm welcome, a gentle kiss on his cheek, and settled back into our familiar routine together as we reminisced about our time apart. Richard seemed oblivious to the quiet distance that had developed between Logan and me. while joy filled our home with comfort and familiarity. Once more, beneath this surface lay a heavy burden pressing down on his chest. Every glance exchanged or word spoken between Logan and myself carried unspoken weight from what remained unsaid between us. Richard's return added another layer of complexity to our situation. After dinner that evening, Richard suggested we gather in the living room for an open-hearted discussion together. I readily agreed. As I sat on the sofa attempting to smile, despite my racing heart filled with emotion while Logan sat across from me, our eyes met briefly. But unfortunately, we couldn't initiate any conversation due to Richard's presence as he shared stories from his travels along with updates about responsibilities weighing heavily upon him. The voices around me echoed loudly enough, creating distractions, challenging my focus until ultimately, Richard expressed his regrets before leaving for work, leaving Logan and myself alone together in silence. Within the living room after his departure, a profound stillness enveloped us both, allowing moments for quiet reflection. Nervously remaining seated in his chair while clenching his hands tightly as if shielding himself from me, I lowered my head. Feeling guilt wash over me, I truly empathized with this situation, but knew it was time we shared everything openly with Richard because he deserved better treatment than this. Logan paused abruptly, then returned beside me, asking how I felt about it. His question prompted a heavy sigh, escaping from deep within the weightiness of what came next, pressed down heavily upon my heart. I think it is essential for us to find a solution to this problem. Living in this state of doubt has become intolerable. His eyes were fixed on mine, and his expression showed a profound mix of sorrow and compassion. He softly murmured, "You are correct. What importance does that have for our situation?" It was extremely difficult for me to decide between Richard and Logan without finding a resolution. Yet I realized that it was no longer practical to keep things hidden. If we didn't act quickly, the truth would come out in a way that could hurt everyone involved. I replied honestly that I still didn't have the answer, but he hardly acknowledged my words. It is vital to be true to oneself. We must understand the importance of everything that connects us. Logan nodded in agreement, but the sadness in his eyes was clear. He moved closer and sat beside me on the couch, his hand gently resting on mine. For a brief moment, we shared a stillness together, feeling the weight of our situation pressing down on us. His soft touch provided warmth and comfort, encouraging me to lie down next to him with my head on his shoulder. He quietly expressed his wish that things were different. I softly admitted that I felt the same way, but it seemed impossible to maintain this facade indefinitely. We remained in that position for some time, wrapped in the silence of the room, occasionally interrupted by Richard's voice coming from the next room as he spoke on the phone. It felt like the calm before a storm, knowing we would eventually have to face what lay ahead. The next morning, as Richard was leaving for work, I unexpectedly ran into Logan in the kitchen. The silence between us held all the unspoken words we had yet to share. The tension was thick, making it crucial to start a conversation about our next steps. However, finding the right words proved difficult for me until I finally broke the silence with a firm statement. Logan wore a serious expression and said he had been thinking about it too. We gathered around the kitchen table, finding solace in each other's presence as the weight of our discussion hung heavily over us. I paused for a moment to collect my thoughts. Even though it felt tough, I knew I needed to express myself clearly about my feelings for Richard. "It's important for me to acknowledge what is happening between us," I said. "Logan, you hold a special place in my heart, and dealing with this situation regarding my marriage to your father is truly challenging." Leaning forward, Logan rested his elbows on the table and shared his inner struggles with me. "I care deeply for you, and knowing that I might hurt you weighs heavily on my heart. At the same time, being apart is equally hard for me." His words resonated deeply within me as tears began to well up inside. I felt an urgent need to prevent him from slipping away from me while recognizing that our reality was undeniable. The circumstances were overwhelming and required us to change our course to avoid complete devastation. I took a moment before speaking softly again as I sensed a slight tremor in my voice. "It's crucial that we approach this relationship with calmness and understanding. Perhaps creating some space is necessary." Logan's face became blurred as I noticed the pain reflected in his eyes. He stressed how important it was for us to establish some distance between ourselves. His emotions echoed through every word he spoke as sadness washed over me while feeling the weight on my heart. "It seems this is the only way we can truly understand our feelings," he said quietly. Finding a solution feels impossible without Richard discovering it first. For quite some time, Logan remained silent with his gaze fixed on the table before him. I could see deep conflict etched across his face, a mirror of my own inner turmoil. After taking a deep breath, he let out a soft sigh and whispered, "I understand if you think this is what's best." Gently reaching out, I took his hand. "Logan, it pains me deeply to think about being apart from you. However, it's vital that we are honest with ourselves and each other." He lifted his gaze, revealing profound sorrow and empathy in his eyes, as he expressed concern about potentially losing Lauren, while also being willing to do whatever it takes. After our conversation ended, I felt drained, yet experienced an overwhelming sense of calmness wash over me as we stopped pretending and began embracing our reality, marking the start of our journey toward understanding how we could move forward from there. Although it was challenging, it was indeed the only way forward. In the days that followed, Logan and I decided to keep some distance from one another so we could take time to reflect on our situation, complex yet necessary. While uncertain about what lay ahead, I knew that regardless of what happened next, we would face everything together side by side eventually. A decision would need to be made at some point. However, for now, we were gradually moving forward while exploring the complicated emotions that had led us here. Despite everything happening around us, I felt an unbreakable bond connecting us. What united us would endure even as circumstances changed. That night, as I lay in bed surrounded by soothing silence within the house, an overwhelming sense of peace enveloped me. Although things weren't perfect or easy at all, it felt real, and that was enough for that moment.